I wish I had read more of Ndebele novels. Welcome to the reader response from Seth Thembelihle. You know the communication process is not over till the receiver sends feedback. Therefore, in this podcast, as a reader, at the receiving end of written communication, I respond to the books I've read. My name is Seth Thembelihle Moyo. Thank you for listening, thank you for downloading, and please subscribe wherever you get your podcast, be it on Spotify or Google Podcasts or from any of the 6 platforms that you can access the podcast from. Welcome to episode 4 of the Read and Response podcast. On this episode, I reflect on my Ndebele reading experience. When I was thinking about the podcast in terms of the vision and the direction of the podcast, thinking of the things I would talk about as a reader, I realized from the plenty of books I've read, I've only read a few Ndebele novels. That is what I want to interrogate on this episode. Try and figure out why I've read less Ndebele novels compared to English novels. Not This is not a Damascus moment, and I tell you at the end of this, I'm going to read a strictly Ndebele novel or some form of repentance or conversion. I'm just reflecting, looking back, trying to work out why I've read less Ndebele novels compared to English novels. Ndebele is my first language, and the first book, as I talked about in the first episode of the Reader Response, check it out if you haven't listened to it, is that my first experience of reading was a Ndebele novel, that is Seth Thembelihle Moyo. So then I'm wondering what went wrong from that point that has resulted in me reading less of Ndebele novels compared to English novels. Let's start here. Let's start with access. Ndebele novels are not easily accessible compared to English novels. I think that is the first reason. If I look back, if I look closely, is the issue is one of the issues is access. It is difficult to access Ndebele novels as compared to English novels. For instance, if you borrow a novel, it is easy to get an English novel as compared to a Ndebele novel, be it from friends, be it from neighbors. It is easy to get English novel. Even in terms of the library, I was a member of the Ndebele library from grade 3 up to Form 1, and I can tell you, looking back, there weren't plenty of Ndebele novels from the library. The book that I remember from the Ndebele book that I remember from the library was Ukuthunjwa Kwasukuzukuduma. I remember the shelf that had African novels. It was one shelf, and from there weren't many books from that shelf. I think there was a Shona dictionary. The other book that I remember I got from there was Walking Still, a Zimbabwean novel. I've forgotten the name of the writer. And then there was Usukuzukuduma. That was that. There weren't plenty of Ndebele novels at the library. So I'd say the reason why I've read less Ndebele novel is access. It is difficult to get Ndebele novel as compared to English. But I have to say, when we were in Form 1, our Ndebele teacher, Sekumaro, we had this library system whereby, free of charge, we could borrow 2 novels from the Ndebele department at our school. I went to Skulile High School. So in terms of access, for a time I had access to Ndebele novels. Like my grade 3 to 4 teacher, who was of the idea that reading would improve our learning, our vocabulary, our Ndebele teacher, Sikumalo, felt that reading more Ndebele novels would improve our Ndebele in terms of our vocabulary, in terms of our composition writing. I was bad at composition writing when it comes to Ndebele, even up to when I got to A level. That was my worst exercise. So she was of the idea that if we read more Ndebele novels, our Ndebele would improve, and it was a good idea. But being students at the time, looking back, I would take the books and put them in my bag, and that's where they will stay most of the time before I exchanged them again. The only people that benefited from that was my mother and her sister, because when my mother discovered the books and asked, "Why are you not reading those books?" I had no excuse, and from then on they started reading them, and I would exchange the books for their benefit. I had no much use for them. The only book I remember ever trying to read was Umzila Raulandelo. It was a story of the armed struggle. Umzila Raulandelo, it was my type of book. It was an army story, war story, and all that. I was interested in reading it, and I tried to read it. I have to say that was the first book that I learned about the problems that come with the first person narrator. If you've read the book Umzila Raulandelo, the narrator is always in the action. That is to a point whereby you feel like this is too much, or you think, why is this guy in every action? Whenever they were selecting, he was selected. Whatever was happening, he was selected. I think that is the other thing that comes with the other problem that comes with autobiographies. When you're reading, sometimes you're thinking, wow, did this really happen to this person? It's just one person. They seem to have gone through a lot. With autobiographies, most of them are written by people who are exceptional. So, they have exceptional events, but with the first person narration, that is the problem. At times, the story is so much told from this one point of view, so much that it starts to be a turn off, or you start to have suspicions. But going back, it's like I say, to say it was access, to blame it just on access wouldn't be fair, because for some time I had access, but I didn't utilize the access. I just took the books and put them in my bag and never read them. And our teacher, Sikumalo, left where in the middle of the year when we were in Form 1, I think, and she came back again when we were in Form 3 and left again. So maybe I could have benefited from her staying, maybe I could have at the end appreciated Ndebele much more, but that was that. I think it was access. It is difficult to access Ndebele novels, but it is not fair because at some time I had access to the novels. Like I said, I had no much use for the books, which leads me to my second reason, which is Ndebele literature lacks transition. By lack of transition, I mean, let's look at English. With English, there's children's books, then you go to young adults books, is it, teenage books, all that, and then you get all the way to adult level books, That you don't see or was not there. I don't want to say now, maybe now there are children's books and all those levels, but when I was growing up, there were the children's books. Most books dealt with adult issues. That is why I had no use for most of the Ndebele novels that we checked out from the library department, like Usethi, Ukwenwake, Ustembeni Uphindoda. All those books dealt with issues that I didn't care about at that age when I was 13. That is maybe why I did not read much of Ndebele novels, right? While with English, there were compelling novels to read, novels that dealt with issues at my age, even though maybe there were issues that dealt with other countries, but they dealt with issues that I could relate to at that age, unlike Ndebele novels. So I would say with transition, the problem with transition is from a young age, there was no children's books to read to get me into the system of reading Ndebele novels, to lead me through the system up until I get to books that dealt with adult issues. Maybe at this point, it, they weren't those books, but English there was. Um, there is that transition. The literature sort of nurtures you, because there are plenty of books that are of children's books, and of all those, at every stage there is a book that you read that you find compelling, all those novels. Unlike with Ndebele that didn't have that. I think that is the problem that comes with Ndebele literature. You're not groomed into the system. When I was preparing for this episode, I decided to Google bits and find out if there are Ndebele children's books. I found out there is the Togo Togo Vuga children's book produced by Nomusa Ndebele and Carol Zingai. They're producing this Togo Togo Vuga series, and there's a shorter version of the Togo Togo Vuga series, which is, I think, is a good thing now. The fact that the people trying to produce Ndebele children's books. I think we need more of that, so that we have a system that is able to groom, to nurture people into appreciating Ndebele novels. That is novels written in Ndebele. I think which is something that we should do more, so that we can have people that appreciate isiNdebele that much more. Even so, we need to create much more of those books in Zimbabwe for Ndebele or any other local language. I've seen children's books that, like I said, I did some, bit of research. There are other children's books, but the mistake again is they're written in English, even though people are saying we're trying to create books that relate to issues that are happening around us. Right? It's good that we're having children's books that deal with Zimbabwean issues, but I think we need more that are written in local languages. So, which is a good thing. I think those are the two reasons why I think I read less Ndebele novels compared to English novels. That is access, and the other thing is transition. The English system grooms you so much that your allegiance lies a lot more with English than with, in my case, is Ndebele, my local and my first language, because there aren't much Ndebele novels at a young age. And then when you get to the adult issue, it's already too late to try and bring you in. Talking about transition, I think we also need more genres when it comes to literature written in local language. In this case, it's in Ndebele. We need more fantasy fiction. We need more action novels in terms that are written in Ndebele. Not just that deal with the armed struggle. Even today, try and write a thriller that is written in Ndebele. Get us a thriller that is written in Ndebele, a horror story that is written in Ndebele. All this stuff, because when you get to look, you can talk about social issues even when you're writing a horror story or when you're writing an action story. Because as I've read some English action stories, you see bits and pieces of social issues that are thrown in there. It just doesn't have to be a story that deals directly with social issues, with marriage or whatever. You can deal with marriage while this is written from a point of an action story side, plot, or all that. Those are my reasons why that have resulted in me reading less Ndebele novels compared to English novels. I know my opening line is dramatic. Sounds like I'm dying or something. Look, I'm 29 and I can go on a Ndebele novel reading spree. It is not too late. Oh, well, we're in 2020. You never know. It seems like the world is coming to an end. But with that said, maybe my next year's resolution should be reading more Ndebele novels. Feel free to recommend must-read Ndebele novels. My must-read Ndebele novel, if you haven't read it, is Uthunja Kwasuku Zokuduma by Geshom Kiyaza. If you haven't read that book, please check it out. I'll do an episode on it. In the episode, it will definitely be on why I think Suku Zokuduma should be turned into a 10 episode Netflix series. Thank you for listening to the Read That Response. If you have any feedback, please feel free to share on the email thereadthatresponse@gmail.com. This is a podcast built on feedback, so we encourage you to send us feedback and we keep the conversation going. Please follow on Read That Response 01. That is where you can follow me on Twitter. Thank you for listening. See you next time.